Hi, this is Carl, and this is the second part of the discussion about pronouns, direct object pronouns in the Spanish language. You will perhaps need to look at the first part of this discussion before you actually move on to this one, as it will help to clarify your understanding about what it is I'm going to be discussing here. Now, I will review once again what I mentioned in part 1. I said that the discussion was about direct object pronouns. Pronouns being those words which can replace nouns such as animate or inanimate objects, proper nouns, people and places, and abstract nouns. And they are also ones which usually appear mid-sentence or appear at the very end of a sentence, in English that is, and very rarely begin a sentence. I then gave the direct object pronouns in English, and they are me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. I then went on to mention that in Spanish you actually have two translations of each of those pronouns, and the translation will be dependent on where the pronoun appears in the Spanish sentence. In part 1, I've placed them next to what would be known as prepositions. Now, a preposition is basically a word which demonstrates where one noun is in relation to another, or describes the relationship between one noun and another. For example, let's take the two nouns, this gift, or gift, and then my mother, or just simply mother. Two nouns, gift and mother. And let's take the sentence, this gift is for my mother. This gift is the noun phrase, is the verb, for, or intended for, is the preposition, and my mother is the second noun phrase. So for is showing the relationship between the gift and the mother. So the gift is for the mother. The one example which I used in part 1 was the Spanish translation of or from, which is de, where, once again, de, of, can show the relationship between the gift and my mother. We can tweak the sentence we had just now. This gift is for my mother. We can say instead, this gift is from my mother. Where from, and as I've just said, from and of can be translated into Spanish using de. From denotes the relationship between this gift and my mother. Prepositions, as I say, were the focus of the discussion about direct object pronouns in Spanish in part 1. Where, however, they appear next to verbs, the translations are different. A verb obviously being a word in which you can generally place the word to, as in to go, and then we have in English goes. Another verb would be find or finds, and normally in the present tense in English, verb forms only adopt a maximum of two different forms. The one next to which you place the word to, as in to find, and you say I find, you find, they find, and then the second form is the one which is the same as the first one but with an extra s, finds, as in he finds, she finds, and potentially it finds. But unfortunately in Spanish and also in a number of other European languages you'll have quite a number of different forms, usually 6 or 7, obviously depending on the language. So let's take an example. Let's take we'll take I love you, or I want you, as is sometimes said in Spanish. Love is a verb, so we cannot use the same translation of you as I gave in part 1. From you is de ti, but I love you is te quiero. Now the safest bet in Spanish, although it does seem rather tricky, is to place the pronoun before the verb form, so that we have a difference in word order between English and Spanish, where in English you say I love you, but in Spanish you say you I love. In fact, that is the only way in which we can place those two words when we're translating I love you. We have to say you I love. Te quiero. I'm going to pick a different example in order to demonstrate the relationship between you and me where a verb is involved, and I'm going to pick she knows you. Again, te conoce. You, she knows. We can establish a rhyming scheme then with she knows me, which is me conoce. Spelled M-E, me conoce, and then she knows you. Te conoce, spelled T-E. We have the rhyming scheme between me and te. We'll keep the same verb in order not to complicate things too much, so we'll keep that same verb form she knows. Let's do she knows him. Lo conoce. In some cases le conoce, but I'm going to keep lo here for a reason. Lo conoce, she knows him, where the o on the end of the word lo, the two-letter word lo, signifies the masculinity of the pronoun him. It can then be switched from O to A to get the corresponding feminine pronoun, which is obviously her. So she knows her, where she and her are two different women or girls. La conoce. Then, interestingly, we can establish a further rhyming scheme by going from nos conoce, which is she knows us, nos conoce, to she knows you guys, which is os conoce, and then she knows them, which is los conoce, where los, them, is the plural form of lo. And then with los, where in los conoce that translates as she knows them. Them can be a group of males or mixed gender, but if we're referring exclusively to females, we will say las conoce. Because the pronoun ends in os, we can switch to as to get the equivalent feminine form. Las conoce, she knows them. And also, them is the plural form of both him and her, where los is the plural form of lo, and las is the plural form of la. It also makes sense that the two pronouns nos and os end in s, because us and you guys is a plural reference, so we can understand the logic of the translations. But there you have it, when a verb form is involved, you must use a different set of direct object pronouns.